All right, the third question. Is the race necessary? If so, why? If not, what would the alternative be? Is the race necessary? If so, why? If not, what is the alternative?
Can you pass those?
Sweets is the alternative.
We want them down here. Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome. She's been very nice about
I'll
this.
start with that one.
10 more minutes and won't be nice. Like, that,
So I think if the race is necessary,
I don't know these. Why not?
I don't think it necessarily has to be necessary. It often is, and part of that's because I think we put structures in place to create efficiencies of time and effort that create those structures like a race that allow us to function. So if you just think about government, some places are cities, so they have a town council and a mayor, and then there are some that are representative town meeting like we do, which is more small d democratic because more people are involved, but it's a representative town meeting. Whereas today in Leverett, Shrewsbury, and Pelham, which are part of our school district, they have a full town meeting, so all the registered voters are allowed to come and say their piece. Now, as you get more broadly democratic with a small d, it is inherently slower because it takes time to get through that opportunity for people to say their piece and think about it and change ideas and rearrange and that sort of thing. And so we have trade-offs that we create by virtue of being more representative with our governmental structure. Now, there are other areas in which this happens as well. So I think we create these races, and that's the way I'm interpreting the metaphor, but we create these to create certain efficiencies. The struggle is when we narrow it too much, or even if we have it broad, if that becomes too insular, and so it doesn't involve the broader group of folks. I think in circumstances where we can just break that out and not have it, the better off. So you often see with very small church communities, they make all their decisions together, or any other kind of small community like that. You see it on sports teams a lot of times. If depending on the team, the players will get together. You often hear about in professional sports where the players had a meeting, and they do certain things. They advocate for themselves. That's not a formal structure, so that kind of devolves away from that race metaphor we're talking about. But there are other times when we have that more formalized structure because it helps get things done in a more timely way. But it's inherent, I think, if you have it, that you have ways for people to access and participate, that it doesn't become sealed upon itself and tone deaf to what's going on in the broader community. And that's, so regardless of who's on the inside, if they're not, they can become isolated without meaning to. So it's important to allow access or ways for people to address that power structure, I think.
I feel that a race isn't necessary. The alternative to not having a race would be more of a collaborative community just meeting together. You follow me? Bringing a certain issue to the table and actually having that community voice be heard. And the reason why I say that very comfortably, because looking at how our society is pretty much set up already, as he had mentioned early on in a past topic that, being a white guy, he has access to everything. And I noticed how comfortable he felt saying that. Not saying, not attack to you, but our society is so Caucasian male based and run and operated. There's a certain degree of subconscious cultural conditioning that's plagued our society to a point where everybody else who's not a Caucasian male subconsciously feels that they're not supposed to speak, or they don't have a voice, or if you do have a voice, it's not as strong. So take Khayyam and put me in the same position with Doug. I'm saying Don is on my mind for some reason. I would automatically assume that my voice is lesser than his because I'm an African-American male and he's Caucasian male. And because of that structure, it makes it toxic. You know what I mean? And because of that toxic structure is what deteriorates our society on so many different broad bases. And it's across the scale. You know what I mean? So if we're bringing it down to Amherst, we can't call ourselves moving forward in terms of civilizationship, and moving toward a non-toxic environment, unless we address all those issues So when we have this core group, it's supposed to be our representative and leaders, we need to know that we're putting people in those positions that are coming from a non-toxic perspective, regardless of how they're blessed to come out of their mother's womb based on skin color.
And do we, I agree
You know
wholeheartedly.
what I
and
mean?
but I also think, I agree. And I also think, why a race, right? What we're thinking about, what do we want out of society, right? How do we define success? A community, at least for me, a community or a school or whatever, is as good as their traditionally marginalized folks are doing well, right? So for me, I don't think it's a community we're doing well if some of our citizens don't have enough to eat, don't have health care, don't have the opportunity, don't have decent housing, et cetera, transportation, fresh produce. So it can't be a race. I mean, for me, it cannot be a race.
Right.
It has to be that collaboration you were
involvement,
talking
yes.
about earlier, and getting in touch with some of our native people's philosophies about the earth and nature.
I agree with all the points that have been brought up. I don't think that the race is necessary. I think that with what you were saying, the democratic process, smaller groups, it will take time, but there has to be some kind of compromise in that. And I think that's one of the best ways to move forward. So what's the alternative look like for me? In keeping with the idea of the race, what about a relay? Multiple people working towards the same goal. Instead of just an individual trying to beat out other people, it's multiple people that each have their own sections, but they're all moving forward for the same
Some
goal.
people can't race.
Yeah, so and some people can't race. So, maybe we need to have walking shoes for everybody.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
So
There you
everybody's
go.
got the same good walking shoe
There you go.
anyways. And we want
Yeah.
to make sure that everybody's able to participate and invited to participate
That's the
and
community.
encouraged.
I feel like they
and
belong.
Acknowledged.
They belong.
So
That's
the
what I was
more,
talking about.
The more community-based sort of things that, and I have, it's like, what is that really? What is that? How do you connect? What does that mean,
It's
really?
a hybrid, yeah.
But folks need to be acknowledged and appreciated and brought in and supported and made to feel that they have the power, given, as opposed to the assumptions that we make of, you probably not. I mean, you're a small business owner and you don't, so you probably don't have quite as much going for you as somebody that's working at the university. You know what I mean? And then we're so prejudicial in the importance of folks by titles or appearance or socioeconomics, of course. And I don't know how to make that metaphor of everybody gets walking shoes work. I mean, I think that in my heart I'm a socialist, and I think that in my heart I thought Amherst was a socialist community, but I know it's not.
And the notion of trying to, a good friend of ours
'Cause everybody
says
has
that
feet.
people have to regain their humanity.
Absolutely.
So people have to regain their humanity.
Yeah, so you gotta-
and that's,
You got to go over the top sometimes with the love and the caring and supporting of each other and listening, and you got to work a little harder. You got to work a little harder.
That has to come first.
One part of that too is I was thinking about. I think one of the reasons, something that you sort of brought up and made me think of, one of the reasons it's so hard to stop racing in Amherst is because that's the way that our country is set up. That's the way that westernized culture has developed. Is very competitive. That's colonization. That's just how it happens.
Sure.
So to stop racing in Amherst would be so isolated from the rest of the country, it'd be hard to actualize. But when I think about it, it's in terms of, because I'm still thinking about what are we racing for, and money is definitely a big thing that comes to my mind. And you were talking about how the democratic process, if we really want to involve the community, would be slower. But can't we define success in that way? Can't we define regaining humanity and learning how to collaborate as something that's truly
valued,
valuable and takes a lot of effort.
Right.
And that, can we define success that way? And I'm not sure if we can do that in Amherst without considering the fact that we are influenced by the rest of the country and the rest of the world. But we can at least start to have a conversation about success, and defining success as learning how to work together. Because I think is one of the most challenging things that that people have to do.